Welcome everybody to the Chess Lab. In today's video I'm going to analyze the game that I played yesterday over the board in my local chess club tournament. This tournament is basically the main event for our chess club and is taken yearly, on a weekly basis almost. Because of many reasons, it has been quite some few weeks since we played the last round, but yesterday I played round 6. There are 7 rounds total. I'm doing pretty well, so let's see how this game goes. Okay, so usually I opened with knight to f3 when I was playing with the white pieces, but since also in the road to 2500, which is a series I'm doing on YouTube, on this channel, I'm playing now d4, which is coherent with my official OTB repertoire. I decided to play one d4 even in yesterday's game. So, hopefully you can appreciate this. I'm being very coherent. What I play online, I also play it over the board, because again, when I play online, I'm kinda trying to prepare for OTB. Okay, so after one d4, my opponent played a little bit of a rare move. He played b6. However, again, this is my local chess club tournament, so my opponent, I know him very well. I've been knowing him for years now, so I was expecting b6. That's his trademark. And here, of course, I have two options. I can play e4 to kind of enter the Owen, because, of course, allow me to go back for a second. If you play e4 on move 1 and your opponent played b6, then you just take the center with d4, right? And this will transpose to, if I open with d4, they play b6. If now I play e4, that's a transposition. And that will be the Owen. However, that's not my repertoire. And Sam Shankland, which, I'm using Sam Shankland's repertoire, the 1d4 repertoire, he says that, of course, you can play e4 and transpose back into an Owen. And wait, now that I'm thinking about it, there is a chance that he actually plays one e4. You know what? Now I'm having a little bit of a doubt. I'm gonna have to check this. I haven't checked it for some reasons, but now I'm having doubts. But anyways, I decided to play c4 and keep it into 1d4 territory. My opponent played bishop to b7. Here I played knight to c3. And here my opponent played e6. Now, in this position, you can play e4. However, this is obviously possible. Like, you can absolutely do this. You take the full center and you're good to go. But then black may play bishop to b4, which pins your knight and attacks the pawn, which is a very typical idea. And, this is, again, very possible, but Sam Shankland, in positions similar to this one, he recommends the move a3. If you stop for a second and you look at this position a little bit, ignoring the way we got here, this is kind of Queen's Indian. The King's Indian will be with this pawn up and this pawn back, right? So you see these two pawns at home and these two pawns developed with two squares in the middle. That's the King's Indian, because it's on the king side. Whereas two pawns advance, two pawns at home with two squares in the middle, but on the queen side, that's the Queen's Indian, right? And against the Queen's Indian, Sam recommends this setup. But against b6 on move 1, maybe he actually says to go with e4. I don't really remember. But anyways, I think it's important to give a little bit of a context of what's going on in the opening. But basically here the idea is to indeed play e4. The difference is now you have the big center, but black doesn't have the usual bishop b4. Now you may say, well, but playing a3, if your idea is to play e4, kind of loses a tempo. And here black has the time to play knight to f6. And this is what my opponent played. It's a very logical move. And here, of course, you cannot just play e4 because they will just take it, right? And yes, you can claim that you have perhaps some compensation, but the truth is you kind of don't. But here my idea, which is Shankland's idea really, is not to play e4, whereas is to play d5, interrupting the communication of the bishop with the e4 square And next, I'm gonna play e4. I'm not really afraid of them taking, because again, I'm gonna get my e4 in anyways, and all they did with this trade is perhaps helping me opening the c-file for, in the future, a rook or even the queen, some heavy pieces against this c-pawn that now every time he pushes, he has to deal with me taking en passant or directly with my d-pawn. So, you know, things get complicated. Taking is probably possible, but my opponent played this move bishop to e7. He's kind of playing his setup. This is typical Owen/Queen's Indian setup, right? Again, usually in the Owen you want to play bishop before, but thanks to a3 you really can't. Again, a3 is really annoying, even psychologically. Somebody that plays this setup, you play a3 and their whole goal is to play bishop before, they can't. It's really annoying. But it's also a solid move, you know. It's nothing catastrophic. It's just very natural. But okay, here I followed the idea, which is to take the full center and take some space. And after e4, which again it's what I played, already my opponent is facing one concrete issue, which is I'm threatening e5. And after e5, their knight cannot move forward because all these squares are nicely controlled, and going here, of course, loses a piece. So my threat is just to go here and they have to go back to g8. That looks horrible. And I can even play d6. I don't have to, but just as an idea to show it to you. And after take, like, I have a pawn on d6, they have to lose a tempo with this bishop. This is not a nice situation. Also, after I play e5, they go back. I can just play f4 and having a massive center. If they take, I still have the massive center. Knight f3 to follow, bishop d3 to follow. If the pawn is here, this is open, so this is very strong. Castling, and I'm just good to go. I may play king h1 to not, you know, have some oopsies on the diagonal. I can also play bishop to e3, and my position just plays itself. But of course my opponent prevents this. By the way, castling e5 allows for knight e8, which controls d6, so you can't really play d6 immediately, but that's why I was mentioning, you just play f4, knight f3, and you're good to go. But okay, my opponent again prevents all of this, he plays e5, and you will see the engine evaluation is not super in favor of my opponent's decisions, but the reality is, if you play b6 on move 1, you are already accepting that you are gonna go into a slight worse position against the absolute main lines, but you are okay with it. You just try to play some very solid moves, you try to bring your opponent out of theory, and you just play... You play chess. So despite the engine doesn't like this, my opponent is just playing his game, and e5 makes a lot of sense, seeing what my idea was. And here I started to think, and you know, I was like, I would really love to get e5 in and get my center rolling, but all of my beautiful central plans are interrupted by this guy. So this guy on e5 is really the problem. And so I was like, what if I play f4 and I attack it? And I decided to do it. I played f4. And here my opponent played what, in my opinion, is the best move, which is d6. He simply defended the pawn. Now, you're probably wondering what happened if they take on f4. Well, my idea, I didn't even check it with the engine, to be honest. I just realized I didn't prepare at all for analyzing this game, but whatever. You'll excuse me. But basically here my idea is not to take back, because after I take back, they can play d6 now, and my bishop is kinda blunted down, and this e-pawn is on a semi-open file in my opponent's favor. They can always target it later. You can imagine knight d7 to block the e5 square. A rook will eventually come here. The bishop goes back, so the rook actually hits the pawn. And so we can imagine bishop here, pawn here, and basically at this point perhaps my best move is to immediately strike with e5. But this helps kind of simplifying the position. You can already see moves like knight d7 coming with tempo. I have to go back. And don't forget, now I gave up my f-pawn and also my e-pawn if this variation occurs. And I mean, they're just gonna castle, bring a rook here, and even if I get to castle in time, which is not a given, I may have problems. You can see a bishop coming here with check, a knight coming here to g4. After I bring my knight to f3, there is no more control over g4, so I may experience some issues. And I know I'm just throwing informations at you, and it requires a little bit of visualization, and maybe not everything is clear. But the concept here is that I didn't want to take with the bishop. Here I wanted to play e5 immediately. I'm winning a tempo on the knight. This pawn is not going anywhere. And this is why my opponent didn't go into this line. And here this knight doesn't have moves forward. Again, we discussed it. The knight, the queen controls everything, the pawn defends. So the knight basically has only one move. And now I can perhaps even potentially consider d6, even though after d6 this guy is a monster. This guy may be able to defend here. So, you just want to play some solid chess also. And I mean, look at this center. And of course my opponent can attack it, but as soon as he plays c6, well, then d6 may actually be a thing, or I may even just do nothing, because he's threatening nothing. And if he plays f6, well, that's extremely weakening. I can play something like knight f3. If they take, I'm having a beautiful centralized knight. Or I may even consider something like e6 followed by queen h5. I mean, possibilities are really endless, right? I can even consider queen e2 long castle, because if they start to open up their king, they're in trouble. And they're experiencing some development issues. So, overall, I really think that this e takes f4 is incorrect because of e5, and so my opponent played d6. In my opinion, the best move. I'm looking at the engine, it seems to agree. Okay. But now things changes. Here if I take, well, I'm not clear what I can do. There are some ideas, obviously. Let's put it on the board. I played f5 in the game. Just so that you know what I did. But I was considering, obviously, right, to take. And here, okay, perhaps knight to f3, very natural move. Hitting this guy. But I was looking at this position and I wasn't so convinced. First of all, knight b to d7, developing naturally while defending, looks good enough. I don't have a clear way to immediately keep attacking this guy, and I have to first care about my development. And also, like, what else can I try? They can also play bishop d6, by the way, which looks like a big pawn, but at the same time, what can I do? And you may say, well, you can play knight b5. Okay, but you have to ask yourself, if you want to become stronger, what if all my dream comes true? Is it really worth it? Like, let's say they castle, let's say I take, they take back, they strengthen their center, now this is semi-open, this pawn is stuck, they are gonna target it, put a knight here on c5 perhaps, they have to be careful about b4, but they may play a5 first. I mean, I just have weaknesses at that point, and their center is quite strong, and they can always play bishop a6 to target here to kind of find play with this piece. They can reroute the bishop over here, so their pieces are kind of getting alive. So I decided once again not to take in the center. I push the pawn, and here my idea is very simple, very primitive, very barbaric. I just want to go g4, g5. Listen. That's what I want to do, right? And here my opponent, apparently, according to the engine, should have played after f5 the move c6. It was very important to recognize that these pawns are actually quite annoying for black. They're taking a lot of space, and so challenging this strong structure with c6, it's very important. Also, one big thing that c6 does is, and this sounds a little bit counterintuitive, it doesn't castle. Is one of those rare situations where the greatness of a move is that it's not another move. You know what I mean? Like, just allow me to explain. My opponent castled in the game, but this is a mistake. The computer shoots up the evaluation in white's favor from plus 0.7 to plus 2.3. I don't know why it's not considered a blunder, actually, according to the engine, but it says it's a mistake. But now white's winning. And of course I didn't know that during the game, because also playing a move like g4 looks a little bit weird. And here, I could just show you the moves, but let me try to make this a little bit more interesting for you perhaps. And let me try to explain you what I was thinking. Because again, you have the bar, you have the evaluation, but look at what I was thinking without the bar. I was thinking, okay, I want to go g4 to start a kingside attack. But my king is still in the center, and my development is, to say the least, very dubious. And my opponent, of course I'm threatening g5, can move his knight back, let's say to e8, but it doesn't matter, let's say to e8. And all of a sudden he's threatening this check, and I don't have a way to stop it. And so I was thinking g4, I actually was thinking knight d7, so knight d7, knight to f3, bishop h4 check, and now if I take, queen takes h4 check, I have to move to e2 and I lose the pawn with check, I lose the game. So I would have to go to d2, but at that point, like, what am I doing with my life? So let's start again. g4, knight d7, knight f3, bishop h4 check, king to e2. And my idea is to play g5 and the bishop is trapped. But, so I'm winning a tempo, right? But at the same time, my king is on e2. And he's already castled. But it feels like since the center is closed, let me highlight it in blue actually, since the center is so closed, my king on e2 is safe. But at the same time, I can say it now with confidence because again, look at the evaluation, but I didn't have the evaluation bar. And my king is on e2, and his king is castled. I didn't know if what I was doing was just logical, or I was completely insane. Now again, we have the evaluation, so we know it's logical because I played g4, and as you can see, the evaluation doesn't change. It's probably the best move or one of the best. You know, this is so intense that I'm getting a little bit hotter, and so I have to take my, this thing away. I don't know how to say it in English, but you got the point. But yeah, that was crazy. While playing it, I was like, what's going on? And here, okay, again, going back to one of these two squares is probably the best move. My opponent chose e8 because he wants this square to be available for this other knight, which is very logical. And here again, he's threatening bishop h4. No way to stop it. If I push g5, he just takes it. So here I played knight f3. He played bishop h4 check. And here I played indeed king e2. And again, now it's plus 2.5, so I'm playing very well. But look at this position. Imagine being on the board. You don't have the evaluation bar. I mean, your king is on e2. And you may say, yes, sure, but the center is closed. Yeah, that's why I played what I played. But again, you are not super sure over the board. And here I was very lucky because my opponent, probably confused by this weird king e2 in the middle of the game like that, and not in an endgame, right? He kind of underestimated, or perhaps he didn't thought about the fact that this guy is not just an attacking piece, it can also become a target, and so he played knight to d7. And this is an inaccuracy in an already lost position, technically, and so now from plus 2.5, the evaluation is plus 3.9. This is basically plus 4 for white, and so this is winning for white. He missed g5. That's the thing, right? Better would have been bishop a6, which, attacks this pawn. But the position is actually is technically lost anyways. b3, the bishop has to go back. But now I can play rook g1. And again, this is so weird, but it just works. Black only hope is to again break my strong pawn structure, but it doesn't work. I just can't keep going with g5. I'm just showing you an engine line here, but I mean, all these moves by the engine from the white side are very logical, and you will see in the game I basically played all of these moves. So it probably would have happened if my opponent played like the engine. King h8. And here d takes. Probably I would have never played this move actually, because this looks insane, because it seems like it just helps the knight. But rook g3, quite a mysterious move. Perhaps you want to in the future kind of go here or something, I don't know. d5, again engine lines, and here simply e takes d5. And again, yes, the king is a little bit exposed, but you're winning pawns, you have massive space advantage, very strong pawns in the center, not allowing black to enter the position, and yeah, this is just crashing for white anyways. Not as crashing as the game, but close. So knight d7 was played by my opponent, missing g5, and I just played it, and that's just winning. it's just a weird game. My opponent played bishop to h6, and here I will say that my training online helps, because here I didn't panic, I didn't get overly excited, and I just played very concretely. I'm like, if I defend this pawn with something like b3, he's gonna play h6, and I'm gonna take, and he's gonna get a pawn for the bishop anyways, but once I go back, he also gets this beautiful square for his knights. So between giving up this pawn or this pawn, I chose to give up this pawn. And so I just took the bishop, which is a great move. I don't know if it's the actual best, but it's one of the best. Also, and this is something I calculated, after bishop takes c4 check, which my opponent played, and king f2, yeah, this king in this game is just wild, I actually forced the trade of the light square bishops. So keep in mind, I'm up a piece for a pawn, so I'm up winning material, and I'm forcing the trade of a minor piece, which is in favor of people that are in up material. He took, of course, and here I was debating whether to take with the king or with the rook. Now, taking with the queen I don't like, because one opponent's idea is to go to c5, and after I play b4, well, now he can all of a sudden jump into b3, which doesn't necessarily do anything, but I would like to keep my bishop into the attack, and the queen controls b3. So if, let's say, I play rook takes, let's say, and my opponent plays knight c5, here after b4, they only can go back, and so they will just lose a tempo, because my queen controls everything. So taking with the queen is excluded. Now I can take with the king, of course, but I decided to take with the rook. And the reason is I want to go g1, h1 in some cases and just be safe. I can always play rook g1 back, right? But I wanted my king to be safe. However, my opponent played h6, and you have to be flexible in your thinking. Since h6 was played, this creates a weakness, which is the h6 pawn itself. And so rather than going king g1, h1, I played what I consider during the game a better move, rook to g1, which now creates massive pressure on these two lines, and you see h6 is kind of a problem. Let's be a little bit more concrete. After h6, my opponent is threatening h takes g5, and so I'm just overprotecting this pawn, and I cannot take at the moment, and I could not take previously, because this knight will fall with check, and that will all of a sudden be flipping the tables, as they say. That will probably be winning for black. I'm not even sure, but probably. And so yeah, now I just play rook g1, and my plan is very simple. I'm gonna go back, and then I'm threatening to take and just win on g7. So because of these reasons, my opponent tried king to h7. You may not like this move. To the engine is not even an inaccuracy, because the reality is the position is just losing, so it doesn't really matter what they do. Here I played queen to h5, and I thought a little bit about it, because you have to calculate knight c5, you have to calculate g6, you have to calculate a bunch of stuff, but I assessed that everything is in my favor, and looking at the engine I was correct. This is now plus 5.4. And here indeed my opponent played knight to c5, which looks the most testing. And here I thought about it, and I decided to play g takes h6. And this is a critical moment. Now, here my opponent played knight to d3 check, which the engine doesn't really like, but this position is already plus 5, even with the best move by my opponent. The best would have been g6, and it's crazy, because after the game I actually suggested this move to my opponent in this position, and the engine also thinks it's a little bit better, so I was really in tune with the game. And here, if you take, you are gonna lose, because f takes g6, and this is a check from the rook, and an attack on the queen. I'm not gonna put it on the board, let's do some visualization exercise. Again, you take, they take, with check, and with an attack on the queen. So that will flip the tables again. And here my opponent and me also started to analyze knight takes, h takes, queen takes, but after king h8 there is no checkmate, the knight controls this, the rook controls this, and they're threatening knight d3, they're threatening queen h4, And so things get a little bit complicated. In this position, in fact, the computer suggests simply queen to g4. I know it looks so inviting to take this pawn, but no. Queen to g4 is best. You keep the attack going. If they check, you just move, and big deal. That's a weird knight move. You're just gonna have the attack, and remember, I'm already up a piece from the very beginning. So that's just winning for white. Let me just show you the engine line, why not? a5 to prevent b4, you know. And here simply knight back to f3. And this also blocks this file, so here you're threatening f takes g6, that would be devastating at this point. But the position is so bad, the engine doesn't even care. Bishop g5 first. This is like the cat playing with the mouse at this point. Knight f6. Queen h4, absolute brutality. Please don't show this position to kids because that's not appropriate. Check, takes, check, queen takes. And now I'm up 2 full pieces with the attack. No counterplay from black. It's just over. So, you know, even the best move according to the engine in reality is humanly speaking probably what you should try, because a human may just take with a pawn and blunder the game away, or they may take with a knight, which is not optimal. And again, you know, white is winning, but if I start to play non-optimal move, and this may be a practical playing lesson for you guys, if you try to make your opponent playing non-optimal moves, even if you're losing, you know, they play one non-optimal move, they play 2, they play 3, and before you know it, it's a draw. Chess is very hard. So, you know, you are +4, you can be +2 the next move and 0-0 the next one. And then the turns have table. The turns have tabled, the tables have turned. Which, funnily enough, saying the turns have tabled kinda really explains it. So yeah, that was funny. But okay, my opponent played the knight to d3. Here I played king e2, and here knight takes c1, check. Here I played rook 8 takes c1, and here again I'm up a piece from the very beginning. I have the attack, and life is good. And here my opponent played g takes h6, after which I played a move I'm very proud of, and I'm gonna ask you to stop the video and try to find the best move. However, I'm gonna show you a nice line that I calculated during the game, which is knight to f6, and this attacks the queen. And there are some lines where if I move the queen in the wrong place, they may capture here, right, and attack this guy, you never know. But here there is actually quite a cute line, and the line goes rook takes g7 check. That's of course the negative aspect of knight f6, you're not longer defending g7. And after king to h8, the line that I saw from the distance, and this not only applies here, there are previous moments in the game where this line also is possible, it's just more complicated. Here, and I'm not sure this works, again I haven't checked it, but I saw queen takes f7. And here I'm threatening knight g6 checkmate, and that's pretty much it. Once you take, this is checkmate. And how do you stop knight g6 even without taking the queen? That's a good question. And you can't move this knight, because there's also another checkmate which is threatened, which is rook h7, and after you take with the knight, queen g7. So you can't move the knight. You have to stop knight g6, and I think here you can resign. I'm gonna turn on the engine just very quickly to see. Yeah, this is forced mate. This is mate in 1, no matter what black does. This is crazy. And I saw from the distance this queen takes f7. Very proud of this move with this idea. Very nice. Again, it's not only here that it works, but I just showed it here because it's a little bit, it kind of shows the concept simply. But okay, here my opponent played g takes h6. This position is +7, so it doesn't matter what they do. And in this position, guys, feel free to stop the video or wait until I drink a sip of water, because there is a very nice move. There is a game by Fischer where he made a very nice move. You know, maybe this gives you an hint, where he played something similar to this. So again, try to find the killer blow for white. And again, there are many moves that wins. Probably you can play h3 and you are completely winning, but there is a move that really put the nail in the coffin. So feel free to try to find it. Okay, so hopefully you took your time, and before I show you the solution, I want to say something a little bit important. Those type of puzzles, in my opinion, are very useful because they teach you converting winning positions. If you are in a position like this, again, chess is difficult. So the quicker you win, the quicker you shake hands with your opponent and you write down on your score sheet that you won, the better it is. Any delay to that is non-optimal. And again, every time that you do something non-optimal in chess is not good, you know? So trying to force yourself to be really clinical is important. If you want to train this skill, and especially if you are more on the beginner intermediate side, I would recommend you to watch Daniel Naroditsky's videos when he plays against much lower rated opponents. He very early finds himself in completely winning position, and in that moment is super useful for you to see how he converts. He's very, very good at this, and he also explains very well. But anyways, now let's finally enjoy the move. The move is rook to g6. It's a very counterintuitive move because you put the rook on the only square where, well, it's not the only square, but, you know, it's a square where it seems like you can't put it, right? But first of all, this move is not random. You are creating a threat. Specifically, you are creating the threat of checkmate, right? You're threatening queen takes h6, checkmate. And so after rook to g6, you only have to make sure of two things. One, if your opponent have checks. Two, if your opponent have desperado moves. And three, so three things, I guess, if your opponent takes your rook, of course. And here there are no checks. There is one desperado move, but you should, well, these two moves are of course ridiculous, but you should consider queen takes h4, which is also a capture, and of course f takes g6. So before playing rook g6, you should calculate queen takes h4 and also f takes g6. Now for queen takes h4, I'm asking you, what do you think the best move is in this position? Now, you may say, I know that I'm not putting it on the board, but I'm doing it on purpose. I would like for you to train a little bit of visualization. I know that you may think that this is the best move, and I'm sure that you win if you play this, but I would actually throw in rook takes h6 check first, and then take the queen, so that you also keep your rook. Because if you, after queen takes, if you take the queen immediately, they get a rook, right? Again, you're still completely winning, you were already up a piece, so it doesn't matter. But again, we're talking about being clinical. Queen takes, throw in rook takes. They have to move, it doesn't matter, and then you take the queen, and you keep the rook. Why not, right? And of course, going here or here just loses the game. According to the engine, queen g5 is the best move. And it's GG. This is also pinned, so yeah. But my opponent played f takes g6, so we are gonna see what happens if taking happens. And here there is queen check, only move king to h8, queen takes h6, only move king to g8, a rook g1 check. This is an important move that you have to see from the beginning. And here if they block with a knight, that's easy, because you just checkmate. And they played king to f7, and here I played the move that my opponent missed from the very beginning of this combination. Again, not that it matters, because it's lost anyways, but, you know, there is this nice move that I saw from the beginning, which is the final touch, queen to e6, checkmate. And this is how the combination ends on move 25, and so I won the game. So now this was game 6. Game 6 is done. Now I'm 5 out of 6, because I lost one game. And there is only one guy that is also 4 out of 5. He still has to play the 6th game. So he may go 5 out of 6 like me. And I already played that guy. So, you know, if we both have the same results in the final round, and he also have the same results in this round here, he's gonna be the computer, through pairings, that decides who win the tournament. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Of course, no matter of all these considerations, I'm going to try my best in the last round, which is going to be in at least 2 weeks from now, but it could be more. And maybe I'll win the tournament, maybe I'll got second, or maybe I'm going to lose the final round and someone will surpass me and I'll got third, or perhaps not even that. But no matter what happens, I'm playing some very good games. This game here, if we look at the accuracy, I'm gonna scroll down just for a second, so hopefully you can see the accuracy. Here, sorry. The accuracy is, well, you cannot see the accuracy, you can only see the graph, but I'm gonna tell you my accuracy, 98%, 0 inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders, so I played a perfect game. And my opponent has 2 inaccuracies, 2 mistakes, with 87% accuracy, so he didn't play bad either. I just played better, so I'm very proud of this game. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Today, I'm also gonna publish the usual Road to 2500 because I really feel like making some videos today and playing some chess. I also have some time, finally. I've been very busy lately, which is a good thing in a way. So thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your chess.